I would like to discuss briefly a halacha which is stated in the Shulchan Aruch, which deals with one of the highlights of the Seder night. This is going to sound familiar to a few people, but the moment I'm speaking of is the Ma Nishtana moment. The climactic moment when every child sitting around the Seder table will stand up and give over that piece which he has rehearsed for the last month or so in Gan, kindergarten, wherever he is. The Shulchan Aruch says something quite fascinating about this part of the Seder night. And he begins by speaking about when we pour the second kos, and he says, Mozgin lo miyad kos sheni, right away we pour him the second cup. Kadeshi shalu hatinokos lama shosin kos sheni kodim suda. Normally we only pour one cup of wine or grape juice to make kiddush. On the Seder night we pour two, before we even start the meal. This is done in order to activate the curiosity of the young children sitting around the table. The Shulchan Aruch continues. He says, V'im ein chachma baben. What if the boy is maybe too young, or for whatever reason, he doesn't have the wisdom, he doesn't know that he's supposed to ask, he doesn't get anything really. So, we're told here that the father should instruct him. We see that it's integral, it's critical, that the child should ask questions. Even if his father has to coach him along, the son needs to get used to asking questions. What if you're without children? Ishto sha'alta. Then the wife should ask her husband, why are you pouring a second cup of wine before we start the Suda? The imlav, and what if the person is without children? What if he's without a wife? Very fascinating halacha. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Hu shoel es atzmo. Sitting there at the table by himself, he should ask himself. He should say the question himself. Not just say the question, but shoel es atzmo, ask himself. V'afilu talmidei chachamim shoelim zeh et zeh, ma nishtana. And even if they are wise Torah scholars, sitting around the Seder table, they should also ask each other, ma nishtana. And this is fascinating because we can assume that they know really what the night is all about. Nonetheless, the halacha, the law, dictates that they still also should ask the question. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz draws from this halacha a tremendous principle in Judaism. Broadly speaking, a Jew typically faces a challenge. Because when it comes to Torah observance, there are many mitzvahs which the Jew is to practice on a daily basis. Sometimes it can be even multiple times in one day. A certain mitzvah could present itself. This fact presents us with a spiritual danger. Namely, that we can become like robots performing these highly spiritual acts called mitzvahs. Meaning the first few times we go through it, it may actually be an uplifting experience. But once we become accustomed to it, it will become second nature, or third nature, or fourth nature. But whatever it will become, we'll become so used to it that the spirituality which is lying within this, we're not really going to be connecting with. And we're just going to be going through it en rote. We find this elsewhere in the Torah. It says many other examples. When the Jews would visit the Beis HaMikdash during the 3 pilgrimages, the Shalosh Regalim, it says in the Navi, in the prophets, that when the Jews would enter into the Beis HaMikdash, they would go in through one door, and they would leave through a different door. Why? In order that the Beis HaMikdash should not be treated like our house, where we just go in and out and really don't pay much attention. But in the Beis HaMikdash, we have to be very careful that this is a place of sanctity. And we can't get used to it. It can't become mundane. Likewise, the Kohen Gadol only went into the Kodesh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies, once a year. Why is that? Because in the Kodesh Kadoshim, the Shekhinah was present. And Rashi there in Chumash says that the reason why the Kohen Gadol could only go in there once a year is so that he should not become ragil by the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah should not become something he gets used to. It should always remain or always maintain that freshness. Any encounter with that level of spirituality should be an uplifting experience. It should never be something that becomes mundane or one does en rote. And this, I believe, is the essence of Pesach, really. And why we have this halacha that even if you're sitting by yourself, you have to ask yourself the question, why is this night different? And even if you're a wise Torah scholar, you have to ask yourself. Because the power of a question is that it has the ability to look at, it causes us to look at something in a new light. And that the things that we're used to, if we question them, we can appreciate them differently. And I think it's very fitting that Pesach falls out, and we're instructed to make sure that Pesach is in Chodesh Aviv, the month of Aviv, which is the spring, simply speaking. And it's a time when the world itself, it's a season where renewal is in the air. We as Jews have an obligation to harness that renewal, to harness that spiritual energy, in that which is central to our lives, the Torah and the mitzvahs, does not become something that is mundane and everyday, but always has that freshness. And we see from here, from the Haggadah, that by questioning things, we're able to preserve its uniqueness, its freshness, and its newness. Pesach Sameach.